All right, hello everyone. Welcome to the inaugural episode of Trek Talk with Tech and Kirk. I'm TechMan16, and my partner here is Strange Kirk. We play
What's up, everybody?
We play Star Trek Fleet Command on Server 34. And how are you doing today, Kirk?
Not too bad. Weather's pretty decent. Can't complain. How about you?
I can't complain about my Southern California weather. It's always nice.
Well, this Florida weather, it's something else. I haven't been here all that long, but if it does rain, it's about 15 minutes at a time, and then it's blue skies and muggy weather and mosquitoes. Gotta love it, right?
Yeah, we don't really have mosquitoes, so I can't really comment on that. Anyways, man, so thanks for being here. My goal here is to figure out any and all sorts of content we can create with regards to Star Trek that we're both really big fans of. And so my first question to you would be, how did you get into Star Trek? And then how did you get into Star Trek Fleet Command?
How did I get into Star Trek? That one actually goes back to probably about the time where I was anywhere between 4 or 5 years old. My grandfather, God rest his soul, he was quite a bit older. And so when he was coming up, as he was in his 30s, early 30s, late 20s, early 30s, the original Star Trek show came out. So he would watch the reruns constantly. So I grew up in being able to watch those shows and appreciating them, listening to my grandfather tell me about how groundbreaking it was at the time. There were a lot of walls broken. There had never really been anything like that done before. So I think what initially made me kind of gravitate toward the Star Trek universe was the connection with my grandfather. And that deepened even further when my grandfather passed away years ago. And it was one of the things that I was able to enjoy with him, amongst other things. And I think that's what made it fun for me. And then as I got older, I began to pick up on some of the topics that were covered in a very tasteful way. Diversification and things of that nature that were just presented in a really wonderful light. That's kind of what kept me going with it. And so for me, wanting to immerse myself into that universe because I enjoyed it, the backstories were great. There was no stone unturned. It seemed like there was no question that didn't have an answer. There was a lot of work spent on making sure there was continuity and making sure people understood certain things as the show progressed into the next generation, the movies, the next generation, and so forth. And so my want to immerse myself into that universe even further just kind of drew me to playing the games. I've played some of the games on the console systems, some of the PC games, and then I stumbled upon this game in the App Store because I just kind of was looking for something Trek related. And so here we are.
No, right on, man. That's I love that story about you and your grandfather. I think that's a really touching point that most people associated with the Trek universe don't necessarily have. I mean, for me, it wasn't necessarily anything that was relating to a family member. It was just something that was on at the TV. My mom liked to watch sci-fi shows as well, but I think sci-fi was just a really big part of the 90s television because there was just so many of them. And
Absolutely,
I always liked the genre of sci-fi. You'd have at the time. I really first remember Voyager, but I knew Deep Space Nine was on at the time, and I knew we had reruns of The Next Generation that I would watch. And then you had other shows, Stargate SG-1, you had Firefly, you had...
oh, that's a good one, yeah.
Battlestar Galactica, that came on a little later. Babylon 5, which was always a favorite of mine. But there were so many sci-fi shows, and to me, what was really appealing about all these shows was some of them were in the here and now, i.e. the 90s, which was, let's just say, a couple of years ago. But it was the fact that I was young at the time. I was thinking, oh, this is what we're moving towards to. We're moving to a more accepted federation, if you will, the United Federation of Planets. There's people are having more opportunities. Everybody's kind of in the midst of a boom with the .com boom, and everybody's making money and things of that nature. And so that's what was appealing to me. And then as I got older and Enterprise came on, and then once Enterprise ended, there was just a huge lull. There was no sci-fi universe that you could expand into. And so eventually mobile phones took off, and so I started playing Star Trek Timelines because I have Heroes and Icons TV, and it's got all five, say, Roddenberry Berman verse series 6 nights a week. And I eventually got my wife into it, and so we watched every single episode of every single series because it goes on in succession. And now I'm just to the point where I'm like, man, I've seen it all. I've seen all the movies. I want more content. This was kind of before the Discovery and the Abrams verse really took off. And so I was playing Star Trek Timelines, and then after a certain point, Timelines got a little boring and repetitive, and I kept seeing ads for Fleet Command, and I'm like, all right, I'll play this game. And then here we are, 6 or 7 months later. I don't remember when I started playing, but
So with Timelines is another good one. I got my wife into that. I tried to get her to play Fleet Command, and it didn't really take. She gave it the old college try, and she played around. She said for her it was just there was too much thinking involved for what she wanted in a mobile game. There's too much strategy. She just wanted a very simple click, drag, level up type of game. And then so I was able to introduce her to Timelines that I was still playing at the time. And then we kind of our paths sort of split, and she started playing Timelines, just solely playing Timelines, and I was exclusively playing Star Trek Fleet Command. And it's still like that now. So
and for those that don't know Timelines, so somebody maybe listening is like, what the fuck is Star Trek Timelines? And effectively, it's best way to describe it is kind of like the Star Trek card game. You have a crew, and you have various types of officers, and they don't necessarily have to be one officer per crew member. Basically, you can have like Picard as 6 or 7 different crew members from different parts of either the movies or the series or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
And so, and then it differentiates into 1-star, 2-star, 3-star, 4-star, and 5-star, with 5-star obviously being the most awesome and the max. And then there's
more rare.
Yeah, right. And then obviously there's other parts of gameplay. There is PvP. It's not like PvP in Fleet Command. Most of it is PvE, where you level up your officers and you expand your crew, and then you keep on going on missions, and you collect chronotons, which is your currency to go on missions. And then PvP aspects are either you do ship battles, which by the way are done pretty well. You maintain a crew of anywhere between 3 and 4 crew members, and you have to use their special abilities in a way to beat the other player, which is pretty cool if you're into that. And then there's the player versus player, crew member versus crew member PvP, where you try to advance and get loot boxes and keep on going. So it also has dailies. It also has new content. In fact, I believe there's an event that goes on every 3 days.
I know for a fact there is one, as we're recording this, there's one going on as we speak.
Hey, I still get the notifications. Even though I don't play it anymore, I still get the notifications for it.
I can't bring myself to uninstall it, because maybe one day I'll start playing it again.
Yeah, and unlike Fleet Command, you can be a free-to-play player and still enjoy the game to its fullest extent.
Absolutely. Again, I don't want the purpose of our show to be any sort of bashing on any developers or anything, but I will have to add that it seems as though maybe the developers for Timelines are a little more giving whenever there's some sort of mistake or something like that. They give out a lot of freebies, it seems like, and they do really value their fan base.
And I have a story regarding that, because if you don't continue your PvP with your ships,
Right.
there's three different categories of ship fighting in
Mm-hmm.
timelines, and I got to a point where I was steady. Like my level didn't move up or down for one of those three categories, and you have to at least have one battle every 15 days. And if you don't, your ranking basically disappears. It goes down to 10,000 or 20,000 or whatever it is, and you have to work your way back up. And you
Mm-hmm.
can only do so many battles per day. And so I wrote to the developers saying, "Hey, why is my rank down to 20,000? I was maintaining this level all throughout." And they actually explained it to me, saying, "Look, every 15 days you need to have at least one battle. If not, your ranking can be erased. However, because you were either not aware or you just didn't know, here's a whole bunch of credits for you to go back and build it back up again." And I thought that was really cool. I mean, the amount of credits they gave me, it took me like 6 days to use them all. And I got my rank in that particular PvP ship division back to where it was before. And then from that point on, I knew to have at least one battle every 15 days.
Oh, it's a fantastic game, and I would highly recommend it for people that are into Star Trek. And the basic idea of that is that there was some sort of a time rupture, chronoton event, what have you, whatever they call it, where all of the timelines and everything kind of was able to kind of converge into one thing. So all the different, the original series, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, all of the different timelines were able to kind of converge at the same point, where you're able to use you could use James T. Kirk as the captain, and then his first officer could be Picard, and then the science officer could be whoever the heck you wanted to pick. It doesn't matter. So it is pretty fun. I would highly recommend checking it out. Just kind of my 2 cents.
They do take the most obscure characters on the show, and
they do.
Because I think there's like 17 iterations of Q. I think
they're there's a Klingon Quark.
Yes, from when he
did the there's a Klingon Quark. I think it was the one where he had to do that I can't remember the episode on Deep Space Nine, but when he was doing like the honor battle and he had to do the thing where Worf
for Grilka. Yes, he was trying to win the honor of Lady Grilka, and he had to be a Klingon. I also thought, well, he died in the alternate universe in Deep Space Nine. I don't remember if they showed him before or not, but that's a topic for another discussion.
Absolutely. So one of my biggest questions, and this is a big. It always comes up whenever people find out that they have mutual Trekkie interest. Is what's your favorite show, or do you have a favorite show?
Ooh, that's a great question. That is a really great question, because I really have to scratch my head on that. Overall, I'd have to say I lean towards Voyager, and before everybody screams at me for my choice, the reason for Voyager is because...
Unpopular opinion alert.
Right. Thank you. I appreciate that. And the only reason it's my favorite, it's because it's the first one that I watched. And it's what really got me into the Trek universe. But here's the thing. I like each show for different aspects. For example, I love the original series for William Shatner's overacting.
Oh my God. Yes.
It makes Trek because he so overacts every scene, and it boggles my mind that 60s television. There was a lot of good shows that came out of the 60s, including The Twilight Zone, which William Shatner was on, and he still overacted in that role, and it just made the episode that much better.
I can get behind that. I definitely can.
I loved Next Generation for the ensemble cast. when I was in elementary school, I used to watch Reading Rainbow, and so seeing LeVar Burton.
Oh, Reading Rainbow, man, that was great.
Yeah, take it down memory lane. So I
man.
I was a Reading Rainbow fan, and I see LeVar Burton. I'm like, oh my god, that's the Reading Rainbow guy.
Oh my god, all those old shows, Reading Rainbow, Wishbone.
Yeah, Magic School Bus.
The Magic School. Oh man. Oh my god, man. We could spend. Let's just continue on. We could spend an hour and a half on that.
Deep Space Nine was kind of the last show. I watched Deep Space Nine after I watched Enterprise, and I only liked Deep Space Nine for the continuous story arc that they had, especially with the Dominion War. That's season like 5 or 6, or rather, it ended in season 7. But that progression, I really gravitated towards too, because Babylon 5 was a very serialized show, and I was so into the serialized aspect of it. I loved knowing that, okay, I watched season 2, and all that relevant stuff in season 2 now makes sense in season 4 and season 5 and so on. And so I loved that episodic nature of it. And then Enterprise, the first 2 seasons were kind of like meh, but the 3rd and 4th season of Enterprise, I really think they found their stride. I loved and they did something very interesting in season 4, and that was the 3 to 4 episode story arcs, which is kind of uncommon and still uncommon today, because with today's Discovery and Picard, they had the long form episodic format for the entire season.
Yes. Yeah, you can't miss an episode or you'll be lost.
Exactly. So I really have a hard time trying to pick like one kind of, and obviously, 7 of 9 was in Voyager, so you gotta you gotta acknowledge that.
Absolutely. Old Jay Ryan there. So I think for me, obviously you heard my backstory on the original reason why I got into the Star Trek. So, knowing that one of the biggest reasons I started to even experience it was because of my grandfather, obviously, is the original series. So, of course, that's going to be my answer. There were a lot of, as you say, William Shatner with his overacting and things of that nature. But for me, to even eliminate the family aspect of what drew me to it, what keeps me interested in that show, and the reason why I've seen every episode 3 or 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, is because that they were doing things that other shows weren't doing and that they weren't addressing. They were addressing social issues that in such a way that was entertaining, but it would also make, even today, the average person go, ha, I can see where that relates to something that was going on in that time, and maybe even some things that are going on in our time now.
Sorry, go ahead.
So, for example, I'm not really, I have severe ADHD, so being able to remember the names of episodes and things like that. But the episode where they had the 2 guys, the one with the white face on the left and the black face on the right, and the other guy, it was flip-flopped. Yes. So it was it was a race issue, and they were going back and forth, and things like that drew attention to racial tension and things like that were going on, and the inequality, stuff like that. But it was presented in such a way that did not seem preachy. It didn't seem like some of the other TV shows, like when I watch a show like MASH, a very good show, but it's over the top with the social injustice agenda. It's so over the top to me that I can't enjoy the show because you're trying to shove this stuff down my throat. I'm not saying what you're saying is wrong, but it's detracting from my enjoyment of the show.
It's interesting that you say that is that with the current events that happen now, especially in the last few weeks or so, there are a lot of relevant Star Trek episodes that kind of deal with this. And
there absolutely are, and I think because that was the first show of its that was the first show, really one of the first shows that went out and addressed those things. You had the first interracial kiss on TV, and it was this big deal, and all the rednecks were boycotting Star Trek and don't let it on the TV because that's not right for whatever reason they
Actually,
think
I
was a
don't
good reason.
recall. I remember reading about that, but I don't recall that it got a lot of a backlash from the South. I mean, it was.
Well, a lot of this information, and it could have been widespread, it could have been pretty localized. But full disclosure, I'm from the South, if you couldn't tell, and so listening to a lot of people when I talk to Star Trek, a lot of the old quote unquote Trek nerds that are in their 60s or 70s and so forth, they remember a lot of these discussions and a lot of people talking about how they didn't think it was right because obviously they're racists, and so I guess to me some of the issues that they were tackling, it was I think they were a little ahead of their time as far as the other shows were concerned.
I guess because of that, we have an immigrant and a Southerner speaking on normal terms through a podcast.
Well, you have to understand that we can touch on it just briefly. I don't want to spend that long on it here, and I'm gonna get on with my show spiel. But quick side note: the fact of the matter is all those issues with you're a different color than me, or you believe something different than me, and that's why you're a bad person. That just all comes from ignorance and this lack of knowledge. You just don't know about them. Just like anything, driving a car when you're young seems scary, and then you start driving a car and you're like, it's actually pretty simple as long as I do what I'm supposed to do. Anything, you can apply that to anything. Anything that you don't know about is scary.
Yeah, religion versus science. You don't know enough, so
people freak out. And here's the thing: people can believe what they want to believe, and I think that's the beauty of the Star Trek universe. I've gone to like a Star Trek themed get-togethers and things like that. I've been to a couple of them. And the thing is, you'll have a guy on one side of the table laughing and joking about an episode with the guy across on the other side of the table. Both of them are registered in different political parties. Both of them believe different things, different religions. Maybe one of them's an atheist. Maybe one of them's a Christian. But the thing is, it doesn't matter because we can find a common ground with this interest that we have. Because I think we can all agree that whatever you believe, a good person is a good person. And for me, I don't care what you believe. I don't care what you like. I don't care the color, your religion. If you're a nice person, I am going to in turn be, and I think that should be the law of the land. But anyway, I digress. Moving on.
No, I mean, hey, look, all of that is relevant, and I think people. This comes around back to playing Fleet Command. There is a person behind every account, and
absolutely,
regardless of what you say to people, whether you're raiding their base or hitting their miners or dry hitting or whatever, everybody's got a story to tell. To quote Jean-Luc Picard, and everybody has a reason for playing and a reason for getting into Trek, and the more we talk to one another and the more we learn about one another, the less of this useless banter of profanity is needed when you're playing basically what is a child's game.
You're playing. It's not even a console full-on marketed game. You're playing a mobile game, and you just have to put it in perspective. Now, again, I love this game. I've been playing this game for a year. So I'm not putting anyone down, but what I'm saying is you have to put things into perspective. This is not real life. In real life, I've had a particular career. I've worked for the government, and I did that for years. And now I'm a personal trainer. I'm a bodybuilding coach, and so this is real life. Those are real life things that I focus my time and effort on. This game is something different entirely. This game, when you play a game to me should put you in a sense of relaxation. You should be able to unwind. If you're playing a game and your adrenaline's up and you're just teeth are chattering, nervous, and you're getting angry, then you need to stop playing that game because it is not healthy for you.
Yeah.
And that's that's what I'll say about that. Another
Well, then
to
you
get
step into
back to
my
my
realm because I make pharmaceutical products. So the higher blood pressure, the more you have to buy from me to lower your blood pressure.
there you go. Or you either that or you come to me and I teach you how to lower it naturally just through exercise and good nutrition. But anyway, so yeah, so moving on. Another big show for me is The Next Generation. It's a very I like it because it is to me it is a polar opposite of the original series in how things are conducted. So, for example, if you'll recall, a very famous Trek character once referred to the term cowboy diplomacy. And this very same person, when spoken to about cowboy diplomacy, kindly reminded the other person that they were engaging in cowboy diplomacy years before that person even knew what that was. And to me, when Spock said that, that pretty much sums up the original series was cowboy diplomacy. I mean, Kirk just kind of was just wide open, man. He was out there doing whatever, with the best intentions. And if you did something that he didn't like, he would be very quick to say, hey, Starfleet will come through here and completely wreck your shit. And he had no qualms about saying things like that and doing things like that, and that was fine. And then you come into the Next Generation, which my mother's husband at the time was really into. So I later on growing up, I was watching a lot of that. So, I got a lot of that going on. And everything is calculated. Everything is very thought out. You have Picard that really wants, he's a diplomat. He's very much a diplomat.
And so he's rigid. I mean, yes, there are times where
he's very by the book. If the book says this is what we're going to have to do. And he rarely steers away from that line of thinking.
Well, there are times where he has broken the Prime Directive, but I think the episode that sums up what you're talking about being the polar opposite of cowboy diplomacy is where they're trying to negotiate the safety of one planet from this one species that keeps quoting them articles of the treaty, and he has to come up as like, furthermore, subject to paragraph 6 subsection D, we have the right to reserve arbitration for the dispute by this whatever, and he's like, you have the right. I'm like, good lord, the future is boring.
But the thing is, it's different, and I think that they went about it in a way where it wasn't, hey, let's make more of the same. It's, hey, let's have the same universe, but let's show a different aspect. Let's present it in a different light. And I think that they did a really great job doing that. And then last on my list of my favorites, which I wouldn't necessarily say it's a favorite, but I do enjoy it, would be Deep Space Nine. For one of the large reasons is, even later in the show, is the heavy the emphasis on Klingon involvement. And the Klingons are my favorite Trek universe race. I mean, hell, the Klingons are basically space Vikings. I mean, what's not to love about them? They're sure. Fun. They're a warrior species, and so to me, I like seeing more of that. I also like seeing them bring back people like Commander Kor, General Kor, who was in the originals. Yes, exactly. So he was in the original series, and it was the same guy. Well, so it was the same guy that played him.
All three of them were. It was Koloth, Kor, and Kang. They were all played by the same actors that were played in the original series.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I think Rick Berman, as much flack as he gets, did a really good job of tying everything well into basically his universe, if you will. If you consider Gene Roddenberry the original Star Trek, you could consider Rick Berman everything else up to Enterprise and the movies, not including the J.J. Abrams verse. But And that's something that I would love to discuss further in a subsequent episode. The differences between the Roddenberry verse and the Berman verse
Oh,
and
that's
the Abrams verse.
definitely a subject for another day. And then I think probably my least favorite would be Discovery, for the simple fact that it's, to me, the technologies don't really coincide with what was going on in the original series. How is it
Yes.
that in the Discovery universe you have holographic projections of people and all this crazy stuff that's going on in this outrageous technology, but it's never mentioned in the original series, which I understand technology of the time limits you. But how is it that the creators of Enterprise were able to stay within the technological constraints and still present an interesting show? But you had to, for Discovery, you felt the need to over CGI everything with special effects to attract the attention. And to me, I know a lot of people like it, and I'm not saying that it's bad acting. There are definitely a lot of things I like about that show. But in the Star Trek universe, to me, it fits like a square peg hammered into a round hole.
And I think the term hammered is right. I mean, I could go on about the Klingons, if you will, where all of a sudden they start caring for the dead, when in the Next Generation it's established canon where if you die, you're an empty shell and you can dispose of the body. But
Exactly. Yes,
I
that's exactly it.
I,
Yeah,
I digress about that. Anyways,
absolutely.
so the other part that I was thinking of doing was interviewing people that we play with on Server 34, or it doesn't have to be Server 34, but anybody who plays Star Trek Fleet Command, and
Yeah,
to get their opinions on the game, what they like, what they dislike. Obviously, we'll have to address paywalls. We'll have to address the free to play. We have to address the events and how well Scopely responds to customer service complaints and various other things of that nature.
sorry,
But
Scopely, brace yourselves.
well, we'll be nice. We'll be nice about Scopely, because they have the ability to ban you at a moment's notice. And if you've read their terms of service, you can get banned for any reason whatsoever. That because it's their terms of service. Obviously, I get it. It's their game, right? They've licensed Star Trek. They've paid a lot of money through the nose to license all that material, and they've spent a lot on development. I will give
Absolutely.
Scopely that. They have a team of developers, and it's not the developers that are at fault. They're just doing the job that they're designed to do. And there's so much of the gameplay, and there's so many things that you possibly cannot account for unless you have a huge budget in order to try and fix these bugs in a reasonable time frame.
And, to kind of go along with that fact, look at developers like, for example, if you take Bethesda, go play a game like Skyrim or play a game like Fallout. I mean, these are games that are extensively tested with huge budgets. I mean, these are huge games. Any gamer knows about Fallout. Any gamer knows about Skyrim, the Elder Scrolls, any of these huge franchises. The thing is, a lot of the times you're not going to know there's a problem until there's a problem.
Correct.
So
I
you
completely
can't
agree with
possibly
you.
test every aspect of that game. Sometimes things are just going to crop up. So yeah, I'm definitely behind you on that.
So, Kirk, what do you think? Have we talked off their ears off yet?
I think we've done enough. I think they're probably ready to get on and sick of hearing our voices.
Exactly. So, shout out to Voter Wolf and his Discord channel, Voters World, for making all this possible. And we'll hopefully get a guest next time. If not, we'll talk more about the Abrams verse versus the Berman verse. That sound good to you?
That sounds great. For anybody that's on Server 34 right now, I'm currently a member of most. So if you go into the leaderboards, if you want to drop me a PM or anything, you want to chat about whatever, feel free to do so.
And I'm TechMan16. I'm part of Dark Side. So if you want to find me, you know how to find me. I'm not. If not, leave comments in the section below, and we'll respond as quickly as we can.
Sounds
Kirk,
good to me.
pleasure having you. Until next
Absolutely.
time, I'm TechMan16. He's Strange Kirk, and this is Trek Talk with Tech and Kirk.
Bye, guys.